Hey folks, welcome to our 7-part interview series on the 7 stages to doing the work that you were born to do, where you can make an income that you desire and also the impact that you long for. Stage 3 is, in fact, getting connected. I've said many times that connections are the keys that unlock opportunities, and that's absolutely true. Isaac Morehouse is my guest today, the founder of Praxis, and this young man, his entire life, his entire business journey is one of intentional connecting that led to learning, doing, and growing. Here's my conversation with Isaac Morehouse. Well, Isaac, I'm really thrilled to have you in studio today because you really represent in so many ways, and we're going to unpack that. Stage 3, getting connected. I mean, you are a connector. I think I want to learn more about what your natural connectivity kind of is, but then you're a strategic connector as well. So I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Me too. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so let's dive in. Let's give people, we've introduced you, but I want you to tell me the essence of what you do, because I got a little prompt here, and I love your connection to freedom. And I read everything you write on your site and everything, and I went, oh, this is my kind of guy. This is my kind of guy. So I want you to, in your words, the essence of what you do from a work standpoint and why you do it.
Yeah. So my why is absolutely to make people free, starting with myself. And just a relentless pursuit of living free in all aspects of what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, political freedom, financial freedom. It's freedom from guilt, shame, feeling of, being obligated to things, feeling like you're not in charge of your life. So that's always motivated me. And again, it always starts with me. Like, I always am pursuing that for myself and trying to help others with that. And the way that in the companies that I've started, they both actually share a mission statement, which is to help people discover and do what makes them come alive.
Oh,
and
sounds familiar.
That's kind of like how I take that passion for freedom and focus it just a little more. And in the case of both Praxis and Crash, the companies I've started, it's around careers, around early, sort of in that early career phase, helping people discover and do what makes them come alive. And for me, that's like when I go about my day, when I encounter people, when you see people that just don't really have much of that spark left, it's like they're sleepwalking through life.
Oh, like zombies.
Yes, that. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart.
Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you do. Where do you think? I don't know the answer.
You have a theory. I want to hear it, though, because it sounds like you've got a good idea where it comes from.
I think it comes from your experience and your environment.
Okay.
I don't know how far back that goes.
Yeah.
I actually want to. I'm gonna dig here.
Yeah.
Where's it come from?
Okay. So
why does that bother you?
There's something, I have some kind of natural, gifting or tendency towards seeing people's value and seeing where they excel, seeing something that they're uniquely good at. And I often see that better than they do. And when I see somebody who's got something that I think is kind of magical and they don't know it and they're not using it and they're depressed, I can't not do something about it. I can't. I have this desire to but I see what you could be. I'll tell you, the first time I remember feeling that explicitly was when I played basketball. I always loved playing sports.
Yeah.
But I was never great at sports.
Yeah.
I'm always the guy that's going to work his butt off, but I'm not the most naturally gifted. And I remember playing basketball. I was probably 10 or whatever. And there was a couple kids on this team. They were just so naturally good. They could hit shots. I mean, it just came naturally to them. And we were doing wind sprints and all that kind of stuff. And I would always just go all out for all the kind of drills and conditioning and sprints. And these guys would always just kind of take it easy. And I remember that made me really mad. I was like, if I had the talent you had, what? Don't you realize what you could do with that? Something about it, not just out of jealousy, right? I'm sure there was some of that. Oh, I wish I was so naturally good. But there was something that watching someone not realize the gift that they've been given and that they can do something so much more, and they're kind of just sitting there acting like, I don't know, I don't have anything. I don't know where that comes from. Like that's just
how old
in me.
were you?
That's just in me. I was probably about 10. No, like about 10 years
10.
old. Yeah. I was young. It was like my early basketball teams.
I'm going to stay here for a second, and we'll move on because I want people to hear you dig on this.
Okay.
Where does that come from? You're 10. I'll tell you what I heard. I heard these guys are better than me, but they're not working as hard as me.
Yeah. That was part
10,
of it. Yep.
That's as pure as it gets.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a wrong response.
Yeah.
That's a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
There's no maturity there.
Yeah.
You're just going, hey, wait a second. These clowns are better than me, but I'm working harder than them. That bothers me. That's an interesting edge, but what do you think? I want to know from your environment growing up and your experience growing up to where you now have this unbelievable desire to turn people's lights on. It's very similar to mine. As I was listening to you, I had the thought, Isaac basically is a younger, taller, better-looking version of me, is what I'm hearing so far, the love of basketball. No, I'm serious, like having some fun with this, but it's like, where does that come from? I want you to tell me. What if from your environment or your experience makes you have a longing to help people?
I can only speculate because I don't
Take
honestly
a shot
know.
at it.
So I grew up homeschooled. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. And when I was 3, my dad was in a car accident. And he was in a coma for 3 months. They didn't think he would live. He did live. He came out of the coma, came home, and lived with us all growing up. But he has a head injury, so he has no short-term memory. He can't walk. He needs constant care.
Yeah.
And so all growing up, but my mom continued to homeschool the 3 of us even after that. So growing up, we had my dad that we kind of had to help take care of, and my mom, who was very social, taking care of my dad, very busy, talking on the phone with her friends, whatever, and homeschooling us. So by default, I had a very independent, a lot of independence. So we had a lot of chores that had to be done, and then we had school that was supposed to be done. But a lot of times, we were kind of running it ourselves. I mean, it was like almost unschooling, not intentionally. And I think through that process, like I just became very accustomed to a high degree of freedom and autonomy. Hey, as long as I got my chores done, I could kind of run my day how I wanted to from a pretty young age, and it was by necessity. And I think taking that, like the fulfillment that I got from feeling like I was the one in charge of my day and in charge of what I'm going to do, that, like when I went out into the world and encountered people who didn't have that, who felt like they were not in the driver's seat of their own life, like life was just happening to them. Well, I have to do this and I have to do this. That struck me as like very foreign and very strange, and like, no, you don't have to do that. And I was always just like a happy, optimistic person too. Yeah. But seeing people like, my friends who went to public schools and had more of a traditional, upbringing, I would just see there was like a deadness about the things that they did in their day because they didn't feel like they had choice. And that always bugged me.
There it is.
You teased it out.
I just kept digging. Here's what happened. The autonomy that was essentially forced on you.
Yeah.
You adjusted, you adapted to it, you began to love it. And also all that autonomy, whether your mom intentionally did it or not, you had to figure it out. You stayed, watch this, he stayed as a wanderer. You weren't told, you just said it a second ago. All your other friends, you're like, oh, they had no choice. You were all about choices because that was the environment you grew up in. That's what I was digging for, and that's beautiful. So here's how it all ties together. Okay? I mean, listen, I want the audience to learn with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's where it ties together. Just like when we all get a new app that we really love, right? Or a new product, right? Or we see a new show. Like for me, it's Yellowstone. I'm telling everybody to listen, you got to watch Yellowstone. I'm telling Alex the other day, your life won't be complete until you watch Yellowstone. What's happening there? You know what's happening there? Whether it's an app, a food, a coffee, a clothing item, when it does something for you, you go, I got to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
We it's who we are.
Yes.
And so the freedom piece, that's where that comes from.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting because now you're like, I want as many people as possible to be free to discover.
And I mean, nothing fires me up like seeing somebody become just a little more alive.
I know.
Become just a little more
and you
free.
know what? And here's the deal. Here's the quest I'm on. All right. The quest I'm on is to stop people from wandering or to get them before they start wandering.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, this is very interesting. I'm going to throw this at you. You comment on it, and then we're going to keep going.
Okay.
I think the Western education philosophy, was created on a world that doesn't exist anymore. And it was childcare.
Yep.
When moms and dads had to go to work in the 50s, when life became more expensive and more stuff coming out of World War II. And then it was childcare, number one. And then number two, it was training people for jobs that they would keep for 30 years.
Yes. Yeah. I'm 100% with you.
So I think we're beating the curiosity out of kids. So they come into this world hardwired to wonder. Hundreds of questions a day as toddlers, not to bother us as parents. They're just trying to get to the bottom of everything.
Look, you have to go out of your way to make kids not like learning, to make kids not entrepreneurial, right? We tend to think like, oh, well, you have to force kids to do things that are good for them. Otherwise, they'll always... Humans are born relentlessly curious.
Yeah.
And they're innovative. I mean, you watch a toddler, they're trying to reach something on a shelf, and they look over at a toy chest. Now, they've never seen a toy chest used as a step stool before, but they get the idea. I'm going to use this in a different way, and I'm going to stand on it, and I'm going to get it right. And they're experimenting constantly over and over. They're curious. They're asking questions. It takes a deliberate effort to kind of to school that out of them, frankly.
And that's what we have.
And I don't think that's the intention, but that's the result
not at all.
of the process of you're in this block for 50 minutes, no more, no less.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing everybody else is doing, whether you're interested or not. There's these questions that are acceptable. There's right answers for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in business, in commerce, there's not a right answer.
No.
There's a whole bunch of answers that all have different results, and you're constantly monitoring and testing.
It's the nature of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are creating test takers, not pathfinders.
Yeah.
And you're in the pathfinding business.
Yes.
And I love what you do. So let's talk about your journey and how you got into these two businesses, you know. And primarily, we're locking in here as I want people to understand the power of connecting with human beings. I don't mean networking. I mean real connections. But I want to hear about your journey. How did you use connections? And I don't mean use as in we use people, but how did you leverage them? How did you use connections to get where you are today?
I love that you said not networking.
I hate that
When
word.
I was early in my career, networking, anyone who used that phrase, it always involved business cards. Nobody has business cards anymore, but it was like, you go print a stack of business cards and then you go to an event and you hand them out.
Feels like speed dating.
It's terrible.
On steroids.
So look, I love that you're focused on connection because that is absolutely the core of, especially launching my first company, Praxis. It was 10 years into my career before I launched it. So I didn't start off thinking like, I'm an entrepreneur.
What were you doing
start a business
right as you launched Praxis?
I was working for a nonprofit, doing sort of similar stuff. I was running programs that are like fellowships and internships for people who wanted to go into public policy. It was kind of related around the ideas of free markets and things like that, or people who wanted to go into academia. And then I was also when I started doing fundraising for that nonprofit, that's where the pieces kind of clicked because I had been working with all these students trying to get their careers started. And they're like, oh, I have all this debt and I have a degree and I can't, no one will hire me. Well, then I started doing fundraising and I'm traveling across the country, meeting with self-made millionaires, occasionally even billionaires, and soliciting donations. And I would always ask them about their businesses. And they would always tell me, I'm always hiring. I just can't find good people. And so that's when it sort of clicked. Like, you got all these companies that need talent. You got all these people with degrees that don't know what to do. So that was the idea for Praxis. But I never would have been able to launch it. The 10 years in my career where I was really just pursuing things that were interesting to me, I was constantly doing what I call investing in social capital. Just relentlessly building social capital. So what that meant for me was a couple different things. One, anytime there's an opportunity to help somebody out, I would do it. And I wouldn't ask them, hey, can I help out? I'd say, hey, I made this for you. Hey, I did this thing for you. Hey, like whether it was at a job or not, just noticing those little things and being the person who will just take on any task to make your life easier, right? Making connections. If I know somebody is really passionate about, whatever, financial literacy, I'd say, hey, you should talk to this person that works over on the Ken Coleman Show. Let me connect you, right? Trying to be trying to invest in people, be helpful, also being curious about people who are senior to me, asking them questions that are like, young people don't realize how flattering it is for old people to be asked for wisdom, right? That's not a burden on them.
No, they feel great about themselves.
They feel great.
And haven't you also found that those people also kind of go, hey, come on in the pool.
Absolutely.
The water's really nice. They want you to come in there. And that's the most valuable connection you can make. Somebody who can drop knowledge and wisdom on you. And then you'd be surprised how often they open doors for you.
Yeah, well, so I tried to just be relentlessly curious. Now, some of it's natural, but I cultivated, like, I want to be interested. So anytime I meet somebody who's doing something, I want to ask them, how did you end up here? What do you think about it? What's the biggest constraint to what you're doing? Where are you trying to go? What keeps you from getting there? You know, what have you learned along the way? And I would, you know, if I could go to coffee with people or lunch, I would. But if it was just sitting around chatting. And so because of this, I kind of established a lot of goodwill. And something I will never forget. This is a phenomenal piece of advice for anybody out there. Something that I did all the time because I think I was maybe 16 or 17. And I was running some like things at a church that I was a part of. And the pastor there, one day I found a thank you note in like a little slot for like a program I was running in the church mailbox. And it was a thank you note to me. And I didn't even know that this was like the head pastor. I didn't even know that he knew I was running this little program for like, I don't remember what it was, college students. We were doing something. And it was like, thank you for what you're doing. And I went to him and I said, hey, that was a really nice note. I didn't even know you knew this. And he said, Isaac, I'm going to give you a piece of advice that somebody once gave to me. He said, look for excuses to write thank you notes. And that stuck with me. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I thought, I'm never going to lie. I'm never going to tell someone thanks when I'm not thankful. But look for excuses. And so I would practice this regularly. I would sit down and think, is there anybody that I've encountered this week that I'm just thankful for? And so it'd be like somebody I worked with. And sometimes it'd be like the person that's really hard to work with. But I'd think, they are hard to work with, and I don't even think they like me. But I'm really grateful that they do their job well. I'm going to write them a thank you note. And I would do this all the time. And like, I'm telling you, it's not like, oh good, now I wrote them a thank you note, now they're going to do me favors. What it did to my own mindset, my ability to see the world totally changed. I started to see the world as full of more opportunity than ever because I'm like, what could I be thankful for this person or this person? And it's like all of a sudden you start to see, oh my gosh, this person's creating value here and here and here.
That's it. You just nailed it. What that did is it put you in a place where you begin to see value in places that you didn't see it before. Yeah. And it's the power of focus. The brain takes pictures of what we're thinking about. It just does. We know this from neuroscience. Fascinating stuff. And I'll tell you something else that's really great. I hope the young people listening to this, and those of you that are mid-career and you feel like you've never had a whole lot of opportunity come your way. I mean, I wrote an entire book on this, that connections are the fuel. Yeah. It's what moves you down the line. And opportunities come to us when we least expect it if we are in this constant state of curiosity. And I got to tell you something. It is curiosity, really, that's the platform for connections. Yeah. Because it's just attractive.
It's genuine
Curiosity
interest.
is just attractive.
Yes.
If people go, Ken, I'm an introvert. I don't know how to connect with people. Well, that's a bunch of garbage. I think introverts are better connectors than extroverts. Because extroverts, if we're not careful, all that enthusiasm and all that intent comes across as, what are you after, man? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not.
Absolutely.
But I've had people say that, like, it took 2 or 3 times for me to realize you just weren't coming after something. Yeah. I was like, gee whiz, man. Yeah. But the intent of the introvert is just, hey, I'm here. Yes. I'm just going to stay in my lane. And the curiosity, though, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, is the key. Yeah. This connection just happens naturally.
All right, I want to bookmark that to come to when we talk about Crash and Bit with the idea of using that on the job hunt specifically. So we'll definitely come to that.
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll do it now. So this is something, it blows me away how unnatural this is for most people. So most people in Crash, my current company, it's all about helping people on the job hunt to get jobs faster, better jobs, get them faster. People on the job hunt, they go to a job board and they're like, apply. And they send them all a resume, maybe a cover letter that says, Dear Sir or Madam. Now I always tell people, look, if you were trying to, you were looking for somebody to date, you're out there looking for a partner or whatever, would you go to like a bar, a club, a church, wherever it is you go, and just start handing out 1-page flyers that are like 10 bullet points why I'm highly dateable? Yeah. Like nobody would, that'd be weird, right?
They would think you were an axe murderer.
Completely. But that's how it comes across on the job hunt. Hey, I am this, and this. Give me a paycheck, right? Instead, you show interest in them. If you want to go on a date with someone, walk up to them, hey, you're really interesting to me. You know, I find this really fascinating. I'd love to learn more about this, right? You show interest in them. It's not about you. It's about them. It's just the same with companies. If you want to work for somebody, if you send an email to the hiring manager that says, I heard you on a podcast. I loved what you said about this. I'm so fascinated about your company that I made this little project for you. I would love to learn more about the role.
Yes, love that.
No one is going to not respond to that.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Not if you send a thoughtful email and go, hey, have you guys thought about this, this, and this? And by the way, to that end, I think a good suggestion is great, but I also think there's crazy power in asking a couple questions.
Oh, for sure.
So instead, if you don't have a bright idea, then why don't you just ask some insightful questions? Hey, I heard you on this podcast, so I went and bought your book. I love the way you do things. I checked out the company. I'm curious.
Yes.
Couple of thoughtful insights. Yes. They're going to go, who is this person?
It's amazing.
What's happening?
Like I've had employees, it's rare for employees. I've had employees where I'm always wondering, when are they going to ask about how the business makes money or how much? And most don't. They just kind of stay in their lane and think. And I always tell people, like, be curious. Like when you walk into a coffee shop, cultivate a process that says, okay, let me look around. How many employees I got working? I wonder, they're probably getting paid $10 an hour. How many people are sitting in here? Coffee's, $4 a cup. And try to run through your head. Are they making money or not? Like that kind of curiosity, like just about the way the world works, about how, what is the break even for this place? Are they losing money until the weekend or what? Like thinking that way, whether it's a place you work or a place you want to work or just about the world around you. That's where the connections start
absolutely
to pop.
True. An aside, but it might be fascinating. Have you ever seen the movie Crash?
Yeah, a long time ago when it first came out. Yeah,
it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I remember it being a very good movie, but I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, well, I was just curious if it had any impact on the company name.
It didn't. The company name really was like, it was just like a long process of going through, trying to think through. But the idea is sort of like crash the party. Yeah. Like crash through the gates. There's all these gatekeepers and everybody's standing in line on the job. Is my name on the list? Do I have the right dress code? Like, no, sneak in the back door. Yeah. Don't do what everybody else is doing, waiting in line, waiting for permission. Yeah. Just crash the party and do it your own way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fascinating study in just human interaction. And that's why I asked the question. But I love the spirit of what you're saying. It's like, look for opportunities. If you can't add value, start to see value differently, because when you ask questions, like we were talking about, when you make a person feel valuable, you have now added value.
Absolutely.
There's this myth that I've got to exchange something. Well, I got to say something smart, or how could I ever sit with? I had a young guy call the show. He goes, Ken, what would I say to you if I sat with you? I go, you better ask some good questions, because if I feel like you're hungry and you value my opinion, now I have felt valuable. Yeah. And we got to remember that. We got to remember the human to human interaction, and we got to get over all of what's the exchange?
Yes. Yeah. When I've put out job postings, it's amazing. You'll get hundreds of applicants, and I'm like, they're all telling me what they can do, but I'm like, but my company, this is my baby. This is my passion. Do you know what we're about? Do you care about our mission, or will you just work anywhere that has a check? Like, I want to see that genuine interest. So tie this back into how connections have been important to me. So after 10 years of sort of investing social capital and trying to deliberately do these things, the moment, as you mentioned, you can't control when these opportunities come. I had this like moment of like epiphany where it clicked. I literally was walking on the beach, and the idea for Praxis, my first company, the apprenticeship, came into my head. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is going to work. I mean, it was just like this, all these pieces came together. So I drove home, I wrote it all down, and I was like, okay, I have to build this. But I don't know how to do almost any of the stuff involved. Like, I don't know how to build a website. I don't know how to put, I got to build a curriculum. I got to do all these things, your businesses. That's when I started cashing in some of that social capital. I started reaching out to all these people that I had helped this guy get a job, or I had done this and this. And hey, man, I need your help. I've got this vision. I really want to do this thing. Yep. And they were happy to do it. Of course. Because I was the guy that was there for them. You had
deposited.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And when you start your career just asking everyone for favors, it's like going into debt. And we're here at, Ramsey Solutions. That's not what you want to do. You start your career being like, can you introduce me to this guy? Hi, we've never met. Can you give me an interview here? Can you, look at my resume? Start making deposits. And then when that big opportunity comes and you need to go make a withdrawal, people will be happy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I love telling stories from early on in my journey. I'm curious, do you have a story where you helped somebody and then when you least expected it, it came out of nowhere? Like you didn't go back. It's not like you just told, where you went back to somebody and said, hey, bro, I need to withdraw.
Do I ever?
Tell me one of those, because those are my favorites.
Planting those seeds. That's part of the magic of it too.
It's reciprocity.
Because you get to say, I don't know how this is going to come back.
No.
But it probably will somehow. And
I just need to do it.
And I may never know it. So, so I was running this program, as I mentioned, for, young people, giving them, putting them through these fellowships, these internships at policy organizations. And so there was like 80 kids that would go through this in the summer, and I was the one running it. Well, one summer, there's always like a clique of kids that are all like get along, and then there's always kind of the kids who are a little more quiet that stay on the outskirts. And one of those, he wasn't like an outcast or anything like that, but he's just a quieter person. And I had to deliberately choose to try to draw him in, talk a little bit more, whatever, because I just noticed he wasn't as outgoing, and I am, and so I have to deliberately be careful that I don't, just exclude people. And so I remember I was just kind to him. I talked to him. I took the time to help him out, and emailed a few times at the end of the program. But I just remember that it was like a deliberate choice. I didn't do anything amazing. I just sort of made sure to choose that. Okay, I got to make sure that I'm not only hanging out with the clique of the cool kids. I'm talking and bringing everybody in. Okay, so years go by. I launched Praxis. We're going through the first couple of years where it's really tough. We're kind of growing a little bit. All of a sudden, I get an email out of the blue from a producer at Fox News that says, hey, I want you to come on Tucker Carlson tonight and talk about Praxis. And I was like, okay.
You had to be a little bit more than okay.
I didn't
it's
know.
Out of nowhere, yes?
Totally out of nowhere. I didn't know this producer. And I was like,
you're like,
right.
Is this a prank?
It's like, okay, let's do it. And so I went to a studio near where I was living in Charleston. It's a weird experience because you're in this dark studio. It's a remote studio.
Yeah, it's the worst. And you're staring at a camera.
And there's a delay, and I can't see him. And
it's awful.
But anyway, it's a really short segment, and I just get a chance to talk about Praxis. And he flipped out. He thought it was great, and he put the link up on the Fox News Facebook page. Well, our website just exploded. It was a huge, huge, huge win for us, this little bootstrapped company at the time. And I was like, how did that come about? I couldn't figure out how they heard about me, whatever. And afterwards, 3 or 4 days afterwards, I get an email from this kid that was in this program. Wow. He said, hey, Isaac, I'm one of the producers on Tucker's show, and I've been following your blog for years. I hadn't talked to him in years. I didn't know that he still knew I existed. I've been following what you're doing with Praxis. Tucker was talking about college. I told him he should bring you on. And it was just bam, that's one of those moments. You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Just a real small thing. I could have just been he's a quiet kid. He's not fun. I'll hang with the loud, the rambunctious kids. And it's it's
extraordinary.
Who would have guessed?
Because if you really look at it, okay, just on the surface, what you did seemed very minimal. What he did for you,
huge,
tremendous response.
Huge.
And yet we know that what you did for him in that moment, was a tuning fork probably in that young man's chest.
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal. I love that story. Okay, I want to pivot because what you're doing. You're a guy who's really putting foot to pavement here on apprenticeships. I think it is the missing piece in what I believe is a massive problem. I'm not going to go on a rant. The audience knows what I think about college education, the increasing costs, and the decreasing relevance being this perfect storm. I shared on the show yesterday, 50% of college grads in 2020, Isaac, took them 6 months to land a traditional job. Now, this is excluding kids that went right into entrepreneurship or something along those lines. 6 months. Okay, now some of that's their fault, but we have a pattern here.
Well,
it's 55 in 2019. Took 6 months.
Something like 60%, if I remember, of those jobs are jobs they could have gotten before they went to college.
And that's right. And the degree is actually irrelevant.
Yeah, irrelevant.
So that is our setup. I think apprenticeships, if we would dust them off.
Yeah.
And I understand it's not colonial America anymore where you lived above the silversmith's house.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's something to this. You really understand it. You're in even deeper than I am. I want you to talk about what apprenticeships look like today, because I want people to know they exist, or how can they even create them from a spirit of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm so excited that this is finally starting to, the sort of stratified idea where you go over here and you learn in these cinder block buildings completely separate from the marketplace for 20 years. And then all of a sudden you go and join the marketplace and you work. And those are totally separate. That's so messed up.
I know.
I'm glad that that's fragmenting. Because look, apprenticeship, you don't have to like it. That's how humans naturally learn, is by emulation, observation, experimentation. You can work with it or you can work against it. So allowing young people to get in and to be around all kinds of businesses, all kinds of opportunities, all kinds of different people doing different things, and to sort of shadow, to watch first when they're little, and then to try to do it themselves. I mean, you watch little kids before they've gone to school. What are they doing? They're watching their mom do laundry or and they're in there pretending to do it with their little toys, right? They're immediately taking on. That's like so inherent to humans.
That's why every little girl wants the little play kitchen.
Absolutely.
The dishwasher, the sink, the pots and pans.
Right.
Then they get older and they don't want to do it at all. Well, I stepped into it there.
And there's a huge, I'm going to leave that one.
No, it's just a joke. It's a terrible thing to say for a guy who's been married 24 years.
There's a huge, congratulations.
Thank you.
There's a huge, opportunity opens up for the things that you see as normal become possible, right? So children who grow up, children of professional athletes, let's say, or entertainers, one of the reasons they're so likely to go in that business,
that's right,
is because they've just seen that as within the realm of possibility.
Exactly right.
It's normal. They're around it. Yeah. And so the more things kids can be around and be exposed to early, and then as they get into where they're getting ready to start their career, I mean, think about, would you rather hire somebody, let's say, your marketing team, you want to get your content out there wider, someone who's like, hey, I have a BA in marketing from university, whatever, versus someone that's like, hey, I spent the last 6 months doing marketing with somebody, even if I was doing it for free,
right?
Because I was there to learn. That's relevant, right?
Or my uncle is a master tradesman, and I spent 6 of my 8 adolescent summers working with him.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care if you've darkened the door of a college classroom.
Yep. So that was the epiphany that came to me with Praxis. It was like, okay, what do people really need? All these students who have degrees and they can't get jobs, what do they need to be valuable to a company? And I thought, well, none of the stuff they're learning in college for the vast majority of jobs is at all relevant. So they're always learning on the job. What if we could make on-the-job learning happen sooner? And what if we could make it lower cost to employers? One of the reasons that employers, it's like, well, I could teach you on the job, but that's a huge burden for me because I got to run my business too. And they always want the dream employee who comes in ready to go. And it's never really the case. But
that's right.
So, I went to companies and I said, look, what if I took young people who have all the raw character qualities? They've got the work ethic. We're going to screen them for that because you can't, if somebody's lazy and they don't want it, there's nothing you can do with that, right? And maybe in the future it'll snap for them, but we'll screen them for that. We'll give them just some really basic training on like basic professionalism so that they're not bugging you with time-wasting questions. We'll show them how to use Google Calendar and email and all that kind of stuff so that they don't come in as completely. And then for 6 months, they'll work for you and we'll be supporting them through that 6 months. So if they're having problems, we're going to have weekly sessions and coaching to help them. And you'll pay them like intern level wages, but they'll be doing actual entry level work. And so employers were like, man, that sounds kind of cool. Okay, sure. So show me some people. So I started this thing, started getting people coming in and, placing young people in these roles where it's understood by both parties. Hey, I'm here to learn, but this is a real job too. It's not like an internship where it's like, just make coffee and stay in the corner and then you just put it on your resume, right? It's like there's an actual job that we need you to do and you'll be fired if you don't do it. There's consequences. That's right. But we understand that this is essentially a trial run and you're trying to work your way into. Right. And I'm telling you, it's been phenomenal. Yeah. Employers love it.
Just teaching them the basic business practices, and then the company's going, all right, I don't mind teaching them the finer points.
Absolutely. The things that are specific to their company, they'll learn on the job. But really what we're trying to equip them with is it's almost all just mindset stuff. Yeah. So it's like step 1, okay, we got to de-school your mind. Yeah. This, what I call the obedience entitlement mindset. I just obey whatever rules are put in front of me, and then I'm entitled to a job or an outcome.
Right.
It's like, that's not how the world works at all. It's a value creation mindset that you need.
And see, therein lies my frustration and why I've said we're creating test takers, not pathfinders.
Yeah.
So what happens is they enter into the workforce and they go, when is the quiz? When's the test? Because I can memorize something and be a good student. That's the behavior stuff, the obedience, as opposed to going, no. This is what I need you to do.
Yes. Now
innovate.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Like go solve problems.
Yes.
But they don't know how to solve problems. They know how to study.
Yep.
They know how to answer.
Yep.
And they really don't even know how to study. If I'm going to really go on a rant, what they know how to do is memorize.
Right.
Oh, they're great at memorizing.
Or read the proclivities of the teacher. Say, okay, I know this particular teacher, they really like long, flowery sentences, and they love references to 18th century literature. So I'll just throw some of that stuff in there.
That's it. You know what I mean? Well, that's it. You nailed it. They've learned how to adapt.
Right.
But anyway, fantastic stuff. All right, I'm going to give you the final word.
Okay.
People are listening to this. They're watching this conversation. They're going, all right, I get it. This makes a lot of sense. But I just feel like I don't know anybody. I don't know enough people. This is the number one question I get from people when I teach on connection and the proximity principles. Like, well, Ken, it totally makes sense, but I just don't know many people. I just think that's the question I want you, final word, I want you to just, like you're having lunch with these folks. What would you say to them?
Man, you'd be amazed how easy these days it is to get some kind of connection with someone, even if they're a perfect stranger to you. So start with your interests. Follow your interests. The books you like reading, go see if you can find the author of a book or a podcast you like listening to. See if you can find them on Twitter. Follow them. See what they're all about. Try sending them a message, asking them a question sometime. Or I'm going to give you something. This is like a little bit next level, but it's really not. It's really not that hard. If you can learn out loud about your own interests and not just keep it all inside, the credibility, the ability to open doors for connections with people skyrockets. So let's say you're really interested in, something, biology, and you're reading books and you're just a fun hobby, but no one in the world knows it because you don't ever share anything about it. Now, when you go to somebody and say, hey, I really am interested in your work, will you talk with me? That's much harder versus, let's say, every time you read one of those books, you just post a little review to Amazon about it. And then maybe you write some blog posts. Maybe you start a podcast. It's just you talking. You have nobody's really listening, but it's there. Now when you go to that person, you say, hey, I'm really interested in your stuff. If they Google you, they see something. Or you can use that as an entry point. I'm telling you.
Yep. I think that's absolutely right.
A podcast is a better networking tool than going to Harvard.
Yeah.
Because you can go to somebody and say, especially if it's like somebody in a field that's sort of niche. Let's just
they never get asked to be on a show.
No, you go find a biologist and you're really interested in cryptozoology, whatever, thing. It doesn't matter. Hey, I love what you're doing. Can I interview you on my podcast?
Yeah, they're going to ask you twice if you're serious.
Right.
Because they don't get interviewed.
And once you that's like an hour. I mean,
that's true.
If you call a stranger and say, will you give me an hour of your time?
Yeah.
They'll be like, no, I'm too busy.
Yeah, pound sand.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying, even if it's a small podcast, I'm trying to launch my podcast and I would love to have you come on and talk about your story for an hour.
It's absolutely true.
You're going to get so many yeses, so many kind responses, and your network will explode. So that's one.
I would add one small thing to what you just said because I think it's absolutely brilliant. I love what you said, learning out loud. I want to add one little extra thing to that.
Yeah.
I would also say in your community, whatever that is, family, friends, let's call it, coworkers, acquaintances, be interested in them. They're going to be interested in you and learn out loud. Yeah, I'm reading about microbiology right now. Now, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 might go, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10 might go, really? You're not going to believe this. My Uncle Frank is the chair of the microbiology department down at State. That's something else that when you said learning out loud, I go, you also got to talk about it to people.
Yep.
Don't let it be this little thing you're ashamed of that you do in the cave.
You increase your luck surface area by showing your work. So I'll bring it home on this because I told you the story about how I got on Fox News. There's actually a second part to how that happened. So obviously I was investing social capital in this person, but I was doing something else in the years that happened in between there. I was blogging every day.
Yeah.
My good friend TK Coleman gave me a daily blogging challenge. And as I started doing this, the themes around education and entrepreneurship, they kept coming out. Mm-hmm. And that led up to launching Praxis. And then I'm blogging for Praxis. That's how he knew that I was even a good person to talk to about this. Mm-hmm. Because that kid had been following my work because it was findable, because I was sharing. I wasn't keeping it all in my head that I have all these opinions about higher education. I was sharing it. And so when he heard Tucker say, oh, I'm frustrated about college, he thought, Isaac Morehouse.
I know a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
He had a reason to like me because I had been, invested in him. And I was public about what I'm all about.
Oh, gosh. I can't help myself. Alex, the producer, is going to roll his eyes back there. But let me just tell you what I learned from that. It started with you being interested in a kid in the corner. You were interested in him.
Yeah.
As a result, he remained interested in you after you guys, right? So he remains interested. He finds you, and because you were interesting, he stayed. You see what I'm saying? He looked this up, and you were just doing something. So it's not like a super clean formula, but that's an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
All from a human connection that had nothing to do with your dreams.
Yep.
Just that kid, I feel like that kid needs to be talked to.
Yes.
And I'm going to notice him. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I love it. Well, folks, you know why we asked Isaac to be here. The guy's the real deal. Founder of Praxis, Praxis, founder, CEO of Crash.co, CO. And this guy's doing really good stuff. And I hope we can collaborate.
Love it.
I got a good megaphone, and you're doing some good stuff. And so if you are interested in what Isaac's doing, I fully endorse this dude, and you need to go check him out. Really good stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.